It's still December, so the Santa hat is still seasonally appropriate. Yeah, long time no see. I was busy dealing with an organized harassment campaign. It's a story for another time. Anyway, I'm a bit of a smooth brain when it comes to economics. It's one of those topics where people would tend to talk more about, like, how effective something is rather than, like, whether it's right or wrong. There are some people who will take, like, super principled stances on it. You know, they'll be like, oh, taxation is theft. Or, oh, profit is theft. They really like the word theft in these conversations. But a lot of times it's less so about, like, black and white, right and wrong, and more so about, like, what would actually be, like, pragmatically effective, what would actually work. And once you get into topics like that, there tends to be, like, dozens of, like, tiny moving parts that all fit together. And so once you feel like you finally got a grasp of something, someone will come in and be like, well, have you considered this? And you'll be like, no, this is literally the first time I've ever heard of that in my entire life. So you get all these, like, conversations of, like, oh, well, this thing worked in this country. And then someone else will say, like, oh, well, that's only because they had this thing. It won't work in this other country because they don't have this thing. And they can't have this thing because this thing only works if you have this thing. And this country can't do that thing. And this country can't do that thing. And then someone else will come in and be like, well, no, actually, this country doesn't have that thing. You only think it has that thing because it actually has this other thing, which this country doesn't have because it doesn't have this thing. See, I've already lost track of my own fake, hypothetical, like, non-specific examples. That's how complicated it gets. And so you're just left, like, not even knowing what's true and what's false. And then people come in and they're like, oh, this thing that you think is true, it's actually not true because it's propaganda. And then someone else will come in and say, actually, no, it's not propaganda. The idea that it is propaganda is actually what's the real propaganda. But sometimes people will say something so stupid, so blatantly contradictory on the face of things, that even I, with my little smooth brain, know that it's wrong. For example, I used to have this friend, she hates me now, she accused me of trying to emotionally manipulate her because I told her my dog had cancer. So one time she posted this thing about, well, I have to rewind a bit. You know how, like, people will say, like, oh, you know, Jeff Bezos has so much money and he's just sitting on all of it. He could be using it to fix all of the world's problems, but instead he just locks it in a big safe and does nothing with it. Isn't that evil? And the usual counter-argument against that is like, well, no, he doesn't actually have that much money. This is like the net worth of everything he owns, like his house and his business and just everything else. Well, this friend of mine hates me now, cancer dog, story for another time. So she shared this post saying, well, basically that. But it ends off by saying, and that's the messed up part about capitalism, that we can't even take Jeff Bezos' money and use it to save the world, because it doesn't actually exist. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, wait, the initial complaint was that he had this big chunk of money that he wasn't doing anything with, and it could be used to help people. And now when you find out that he doesn't have this big chunk of money, and he's not actually hoarding it, now the complaint is that he's not hoarding a bunch of money that you can then take and then use to save the world. Like, it's a complaint that he's not actually doing the bad thing that people thought he was doing. Like, there's so many things you can actually criticize about Amazon. Like, weren't they making plans to make, like, a toilet that hurts to sit down on for too long? That way people would work more and poop less. Also, apparently they, like, locked people in one of their warehouses during a storm and they died. You know, you won't find many people disagreeing that that's bad. It'd be very easy to say just, hey, I think Amazon should treat its workers better, or I think Amazon should pay its workers more. But no, people always got to go for the big, grandiose stuff. So yeah, the moral of this story is that you're never really going to see me talking about economics unless I'm responding to someone who says something so stupid that even a smooth brain like me can tell that it's wrong. Oh man, this transition is going to be kind of mean. Is that everybody wants to rule the world?
I think I finally went and worked myself to death.
Oh yeah, so I guess before we get started, in the video immediately following this one, PhilosophyTube came out as a transgender woman, which is, you know, all fine and good. But it does leave the weird discrepancy of PhilosophyTube is a woman, and I want to refer to her as such because, you know, she is one. But to anyone whose only knowledge of PhilosophyTube is this video that I'm responding to right now, they would just be left assuming PhilosophyTube's a man, because she hadn't transitioned yet. So, you know, I wanted to avoid having, like, any comments that are like, hey, why are you saying she? Isn't that a dude? And so the way I was going to integrate that information in was I was going to make a joke like, oh, wow, what a coincidence. PhilosophyTube transitions right between this video coming out and me responding to it. You know, if she had done it a little earlier, she would have been out as a woman in this video, and there'd be no discrepancy. Or if she had done it later, then she would have been identifying as a man when I was responding to it, so there'd be no discrepancy. But no, perfect timing. It just had to happen right in between. You know, she couldn't wait till I was done. How inconsiderate of her. But now it's been a literal year, so that joke doesn't really work, because I took too long. So I'm just laying the anatomy of this dead joke that never even really existed in the first place out. Yeah.
Thanks to the pandemic, people all over the globe are out of work.
How did you work yourself to death then?
And politicians are scrambling to get the economy back on track. But don't you feel like there's something wrong with work?
No?
It was like it was radioactive. Like I would take construction jobs and it was like I was being poisoned.
Yeah.
You know, it was like literally like I was getting radiation.
Yeah, you feel like you're dying.
Yeah.
You're young and you're awake and you're like, I'm dying. This is killing me.
Oh, if that's what you mean, then yeah, sure. I suppose that is something that is wrong with work. I feel like maybe you could have said, I think that jobs that expose you to radiation should have higher health standards and safety procedures, instead of saying, isn't there something wrong with work? Because I agree with that first one. That second one, I don't even really know what that means.
I think learning about work has the potential to cut across political divides in these polarized times.
Racist dog whistle much? Don't you realize that people on the other side of the political divide are bad? No, I'm just kidding. That's a very noble aspiration, actually.
Because a lot of people feel, and I want to explore why. Currently, I have 2 full-time jobs. I'm a professional actor, and I also do whatever this is.
Professional acting? And writing and editing, I guess?
But I want to tell you about the 5 jobs I had before this one. So put on your nightcap,
I got a Santa hat.
sup your meager plate of gruel, and allow me to play the Ghost of Christmas Past.
It was Everybody Wants to Rule the World. No idea what that has to do thematically with the concept of work or jobs. Good cover, though.
My first real job when I was still a teenager was doing data entry as an office temp for the NHS. Technically, I worked for a private temp agency who were hired by the NHS, but it was my job to take paper copies of patient records and type them into the computer. I was usually hired during a busy period to clear a big stack of papers, and then after a few weeks I'd be moved to a different department, maybe in a different hospital. Thing is, people only requested a temp when the records piled up too high for them to handle. And the process of requesting and arranging one took a couple of weeks. So by the time I got there, they'd usually managed to clear the backlog themselves. My boss was some agency dude on the phone who I'd never met. Nobody in the office had any authority over me, and unless I really pissed them off, it wasn't really worth the effort it would take to get rid of me. The only time it ever got tense was when I used the office microwave to make fish soup, which, in fairness, was a dick move. So most of the time, I was paid to sit around doing literally nothing.
Wow, that sounds like an incredible gig.
And you might think that sounds like a pretty sweet gig.
Pretty sweet. No, I think it's a lot better than pretty sweet. I'd say it's an incredible gig.
But it was miserable. I still had to get up early,
Oh no, you had to get up early.
put on a tie,
Oh no, you had to put on a tie.
go into an office,
Oh no, you had to go into an office.
which was usually in a horrible, cramped old building with the heating turned up way too high,
Okay, that's the first thing you said that was actually bad.
and those white styrofoam ceiling tiles, only they'd all gone yellow with age.
Oh no, the ceiling was the wrong color.
And sit there all day doing nothing when I could have been doing literally anything else.
Well, no, because if you didn't have that job, you would have a different job, and that job would have made you do things, as opposed to this job, which did not make you do things.
I was never in an office long enough to get to know anyone or share in the banter. I just drank lots of tea and read a book.
Oh, well, there's your solution. You can just keep reading books, keep drinking tea, maybe drink other things. Get creative with what kind of lunches you bring. Bring some paper, you can draw.
did pointless mental exercises like figure out exactly how much I was being paid per second just to sit there.
Personally, I would go back to the book thing. I think the book was a better option.
You could probably put the whole NHS on one computer system and give the doctors those pad things from Star Trek, and then there wouldn't be any paper records and I could have just made fish soup at home.
Okay, so the fact that you have to reference that it's from Star Trek, a work of speculative science fiction, sort of shows why they couldn't do that, because it was a fictional piece of technology. I'm sure we could do it now, but I'm guessing they didn't have that technology back then. And if they did have that technology back then, I don't know why you didn't just say we could have used this thing, instead of we could have used this thing from this fake made-up TV show with technology that isn't real and doesn't exist yet.
And it turns out that a lot of people feel that way about their jobs. The anthropologist David Graeber was famous for his analysis of so-called bullshit jobs. Not just hard jobs. Those are something else, and I've had a few of them too. In order to qualify as a bullshit job, the person doing it has to believe that there isn't really any point, but they have to pretend like there is. According to a 2015 poll by YouGov, 37% of British workers believe that their job makes no meaningful contribution to the world. And maybe that's not surprising, because the main products of the British economy since the Thatcher years have been sarcasm and transphobia.
Okay, I'm waiting for the funny.
But it might not just be cruel Britannia. Supposedly in the Netherlands, it's 40%.
Sort of undermines the previous joke, but go on.
We might want to take those numbers with a pinch of salt. That poll asked 849 adults, which is hardly every working person in Britain.
Well, 849 is not a bad sample size. It's not a bad number. You don't have to poll every working person in Britain. You just have to make sure you reduce any sort of like bias that could show up. Like people with a certain job aren't more likely to answer the quiz. As long as you got that, you're good. Don't undersell yourself.
But when Graeber wrote a little article about bullshit jobs, it went viral and got translated into over a dozen languages. He got a ton of emails from people being like, yes, my job is nonsense, which suggests that it might have struck a chord. I certainly found it relatable. That data entry job was pure bullshit. It was just a test of my mental stamina. How long can you sit here pretending to do something before you give up? And it's the pretending that's exhausting, which is kind of a weird thing for me to say, because now pretending is my job.
Yes, it is kind of a weird thing for you to say, because now pretending is your job.
There's quite a lot of pretending that goes into making this show. Plus, like I said, I'm also an actor, and that is literally just playing pretend. Diary of a Workaday Actor.
You didn't have to say that so loudly.
Dear Diary, today I did a commercial for a product I've never used. I had to pick up a jug of water and put it down in front of the camera 27 times. Then I had to throw a bottle into a bin 17 times, missing in exactly the same way every time. I've never used the product before, I don't expect I ever will, and I wasn't paid very much to do it. All in all, it was a great day. When I'm acting though, I'm pretending on my own terms.
No, you're not. You just said you had the product chosen for you. You were told exactly what to do and what to say. You had to do it multiple times. You even had to throw the bottle in a specific way. It's not on your own terms. It's very much dictated by someone else.
My first job out of drama school was doing voiceover for an accounting firm's internal corporate video. And it was a blast. I had a great day. I didn't write the script or direct it, but I had creative control over my performance, and that counts for a lot.
Oh, that's what we're defining as being on your own terms? Alright, okay, I guess.
Bullshit jobs require you to pretend for your boss.
I mean, acting jobs, you also have a boss. Like, you can't just do anything. Like you said, you had to throw the exact same bottle the exact same way 27 times. I wouldn't exactly call that free as a bird. Like, I don't know, if you define freedom as being like, oh, I have to say these exact words, but I get to choose how I say that, I feel like that applies to pretty much any job. Because, like, in an acting job, especially, you said you enjoyed doing, like, a corporate video. I imagine there's a very specific tone they were going for. If you came into that like, hey guys, I'm Philosophy Tube, radical, I don't fucking know. Like, I feel like they would have been like, no, tone it down. And that's kind of true for just any job. If anything, you have more freedom in a bullshit job than in an acting job, because in an acting job, you get told what to say and a vague guideline of how to say it, and then you have a wiggle room within that. But in a bullshit job, you really only have like a general concept you have to get across and a certain tone you have to deliver it in. You can kind of choose the specific words if you want. I don't know.
Even if you know and they know that there's no point in you being there, you still have to do it. Someone else owns your time, so you just have to sit there and use it up on pointless tasks till the end of the day.
Or pointful tasks. You said you read books there? That means clearly you've got some wiggle room with what you can do with your time. There's a lot of books. I don't know if you had the option to like watch YouTube videos on your phone back then. I don't know how long ago this job was. But even just being able to read books, that's a lot. Aren't lefties always the ones saying to read theory? Bring some paper, draw a picture, paint your coworkers nude, I don't know.
It grinds down your self-esteem until you just feel like crap, but you can't admit that. You can't say out loud, this job sucks and I hate it, because if you do, you might lose it.
I feel like that's true for acting jobs too. And also just for like being polite. Like if somebody lends you a pen and you say, man, this pen sucks. I feel like that's just not a very nice thing to say, like even if the pen does suck. Like the obligation there is more so an obligation of just like social convention than of a specific job.
So you have to be like, oh yeah, I am really passionate about data entry.
Do you really have to pretend to love it, or do you just have to not bitch about it? Like, I don't know, I feel like if your boss came by and said, how's it going? And you said like, oh, it's coming along. Or, oh, it's a tough one, but I'm getting through it. Like, I feel like that would be fine. You can say that your job is like difficult or that you're not enjoying it as long as you're not a bitch about it. I'm sure there are some bosses out there who expect like just the most passionate, upbeat attitude. But I feel like for most jobs, you can just get by on not whining.
I just love getting data and entering it. Sometimes I do data entry on the weekends. I'm just weird like that. Like, I got a dog, I named him data entry. Like, what? No, I don't mind that the office smells of fish soup. I love it.
You were the one who made the office smell like fish soup. You are in a prison of your own creation?
This is closely connected to an idea you might have heard of called emotional labor. It was thought up by a sociologist called Arlie Hochschild in the 80s, who famously did a study of Delta Airlines flight attendants. They had to manage the emotions of their passengers, always having a smile and a helpful attitude, and a smile and a comforting presence, and a smile, and a smile, and a smile, and a smile, and a smile.
You didn't have to do that.
Technically speaking, my data entry job didn't involve emotional labor, even though I did have to pretend like I was working. In order for it to count as emotional labor, the job has to be public-facing, and the performance has to be something your boss can monetize. The smile on that face is part of what keeps them coming back to Delta. It is literally what you are being paid for. Not all emotional labor is bad. A nurse, for instance, might need to comfort a patient as part of their job, and that's okay. The question Hochschild asks, though, is, if Delta Airlines is paying you to smile, in what sense is that smile really yours?
Whoa. Oh, man. Dude. Like, dude. Whoa. Like, whoa. Dude.
If your job is to produce an emotion, and your boss owns everything you produce at work, then that emotion isn't really yours. It's theirs.
I think you could play a drinking game of just how many of these observations also apply to the acting job.
Those flight attendants had to stuff their own feelings of boredom and resentment down inside and ignore them, because it wasn't what they were being paid to experience, and it really affected their feelings. They felt like work robots. In a similar way, if you have to pretend like your job is meaningful, when deep down you know that it's bullshit, that's your employer laying claim to the lens through which you view reality.
No, you can still view reality however you want. It's just whether or not you express those views to your boss. You can hold views without telling other people those views who don't want to hear them.
To your values and what you think constitutes meaningful work. So no wonder it's upsetting. The opposite of a bullshit job is a...
So this next bit is about something called hero jobs, which I just don't really have much to say about, and it doesn't really tie into anything later in the video, which is fine. I just, I don't want to just be sitting here letting the video play while going, I have nothing to say about this. So I'm just gonna breeze past it. If you want to see it, you can look at the original video.
I couldn't handle it. It wore me down with its sheer pointlessness. So I quit. As I soon discovered, though, The only thing worse than a bullshit job that does nothing
The Holocaust.
is a bullshit job that hurts people.
I was close.
This probably doesn't count as a job since I was technically never paid, but a few years ago I went to live in New Zealand for a few months over the summer. I spent most of my savings on the flights, so I thought I'll get a job for a few months, make a bit of money, and then travel around having fun. But you know me, I had to try and be clever about it.
Oh, I know, that is just classic Philosophy Tube. Always looking for a way to make a quick buck. You know, if you offered Philosophy Tube a way to make money by just sitting there all day doing nothing, she'd take it.
I thought that if I got a job where I wore a tie,
Might it be remembered that wearing a tie was previously cited as a bad thing?
it was miserable. I still had to get up early, put on a tie, and make more than all those suckers working in a bar or picking fruit. So I signed up with a dodgy company selling door-to-door insurance. I honestly couldn't tell you what kind of insurance we were supposed to be selling. I think it was for some very specific financial thing. But in any case, the real business was getting people to sign over their contact details so we could sell them on. That's why the most important bit of the form was actually the little box they had to tick to say that we were legally allowed to do that. Which we were encouraged, by the way, to just gloss over, like, yeah, that's no big deal, just go ahead and tick that there and sign that at the bottom, yeah, in blood, if you can. The work was on commission, and I was told that I could make a few $100s a day if I was good at it. I was pretty good at improv.
Oh, yeah, now that you mention it, you did basically have an acting job. It should be interesting to see why you consider that job to be bad, but don't consider acting in commercials to be bad.
And I like talking to people, so I thought, what the hell? They sent me out with one of their best guys to learn the ropes, covering a fancy neighborhood in Auckland.
Fancy neighborhood. Oh, well, who cares if you scam them? Eat the rich, comrade.
And it sucked. We only signed up 2 people all day. The first was a guy who didn't speak English, and the second was a heavily pregnant woman who clearly just wanted us to leave.
Could she not have just told you to leave instead of signing up for questionable insurance?
My colleague pressured her into signing the form, and I honestly just felt ashamed of myself. Walking back alongside a motorway after a long day of trying to sell pointless insurance, tired and dehydrated,
I feel like that one's more of a learning experience. Next time you know to bring water with you.
I wondered how many other people did bullshit jobs like this one. Why did they exist in the first place? How come so many people were stuck doing useless things?
I mean, like, your job wasn't exactly useless. There was an end goal. The end goal was just unethical. I mean, the main thing you were doing wasn't like the actual goal. You had ulterior motives. But that main thing you needed to do in order to get that ulterior motive? Like, I don't know, like I was trying to think of like a positive version of this same sort of setup. The best one I can think of is like doing like a blind study where like you tell the people participating that you're testing for one thing, but you're actually testing for another because you can't tell them what you're actually testing for because that would influence the result. And it's like, you wouldn't call that a bullshit job just because you're telling people to do one thing that's actually meaningless so you can get another result. And you're basically just doing like the unethical version of that. Like you were involved in a scam. I wouldn't call it a bullshit job, I'd call it a scam. I don't know if that technically counts. There was very much a point to what you're doing, and the point was to scam people out of their information, and you successfully did that. I don't disagree with you that it was unethical. I just feel like it should be categorized differently based on how you've defined these categories. You were very essential to the job. The job was just a bad job.
I'm the best there is at what I do. But what I do best isn't very nice.
Or unemployed completely when there's so much work in the world that needs to be done. We've got a hell of a lot of climate-related stuff to do. Feels like we could squeeze a few jobs out of that. We need nurses, we need teachers, we need carers. Some people like to answer that question by saying that young people aren't doing those jobs. They're all doing useless degrees in media studies and critical race theory and starting Patreon campaigns and inventing 5 new genders when they should be doing STEM.
I mean, if you want to solve climate change, then yeah, get into STEM.
Either that, or it's all these government regulations tying us all up in red tape.
Well, in the case of your data entry job, yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Bloody Brussels bureaucrats telling us how bendy the bananas have to be. I'm British. I like my bananas straight, hard, and green.
Was that improvised? This is a good improv. Credit where credit is due. It was a funny joke.
Like the Hulk's dick, that's But at the very least, that can't be the full picture, because bullshit proliferates even in so-called real jobs. Graeber talks a lot about the increasing amount of bullshit that university lecturers have to do instead of actually teaching.
What, like inventing 5 new genders?
And the private sector isn't necessarily any better. My job selling pretend insurance was completely private and completely pointless.
Well, like I said, it wasn't pointless. You successfully did what you set out to do. It's just your job was a scam. You were working for a scam artist. I think even the most hard line of free market capitalists wouldn't deny that scam artists exist.
So why do these jobs exist? Now, in fairness, maybe I thought that was a bullshit job, but I'm not a big brain finance genius. Maybe we were really helping those people.
You were scamming them.
Maybe there's some dude in New Zealand now who's like, the global economy seems to have collapsed. Good thing I bought all that insurance for this exact situation. Maybe you don't know how your job fits into the whole company, but you must be doing something useful. Otherwise, why would the people at the top have paid to hire you? Graeber's thought of that, though.
I like the phrasing on that one. As if Graeber's didn't naturally come to this conclusion based on what he had witnessed, but that there was a certain conclusion he was working towards, and he figured out how to get to that conclusion, regardless of what the facts said.
He says, yeah, if your boss ever came to believe that your job is completely useless, you'd probably be sacked. So when the boss comes round, you'll pretend like you're working on something really important. And when your boss's boss comes round, your boss is going to pretend as well. So the higher up the organization you get, the less of a clue you're going to have about what everyone below you is actually doing all day. He also says that if you tell mid-level management types that a lot of the people under them don't really need to be there, they get hostile.
Wow, standing up for their employees against other people who say that they should be fired. We love to see it.
Bullshit jobs are often just there as a status symbol. If you've got people working under you, then that means you're important. If your boss ever came to believe that your job is completely useless, you'd probably be sacked. You're the head of the team, and that feels good. Even if you and the team just take turns microwaving fish soup all day. Another reason might be that bullshit helps us avoid doing things that we don't really want to do. Bullshit gives a false impression. It ticks a box so somebody has their ass covered, but it's not actually supposed to change the world. For example, in the UK, the Equality Act of 2010 gives every public body a legal duty to promote equality. The way that's often cashed out is an organisation like, say, a university will publish a document talking about their goals and their policies and their values. But scholar Sarah Ahmed has pointed out that a lot of organizations, like universities, will publish, say, a racial equality action plan, but then not actually do anything to combat racism. They'll be like, we are committed to fighting racism, and that's why we've commissioned a report from a committee. We are committed to accomplishing the values and goals and that will prove that we are not racist, even as we continue concentrating power and money in the hands of white people.
So yeah, concentrating money and power into the hands of white people isn't inherently racist. It's only racist if you do it because they're white. If you just have a business, and as a result of you having that business, there are people who are white who end up getting money, that's not a bad thing in and of itself. Why the fuck would it be? If a white guy walks up to me and says, hey, you want a chocolate bar? Give me $2. And I give him $2 and I get the chocolate bar. Like, technically, I've put wealth into the hands of a white person. That's not a racist act.
And people can tell. They can tell when you don't really mean it.
I mean, some of them can.
Some of those people then go, this racism stuff is all a load of bollocks, you virtue signaling snowflakes. They have correctly identified a problem of bullshit, but they haven't realized that the bullshit work is being done specifically to hide the actual problem, which is very real.
Are you intending to tell me right now, Philosophy Tube, are you intending to tell me that an organization can claim to be fighting against a societal problem, but in actuality not be doing that? Are you intending to tell me that perhaps an organization claiming to be fighting against, oh gosh golly gee, I don't know, racism, may in fact be making the issue worse, and could in fact be turning people off from the idea of societal change? That is truly a fascinating concept that has never occurred to me once in my entire life, and I am just hearing now for the first time.
And I bet if you look around, you'll find people whose job it is to produce documents like that, whether about racial equality, or climate policy, or health and safety rules. Documents that are there just to exist, just to look like they're doing something.
Documents become forms of institutional performance. There are ways in which universities perform an image of themselves, and there are also ways in which universities perform in the sense of doing well. If we're committed to anti-racism, and we've said that we are, then how can we be racist?
Are you intending to tell me, just right now, in this very moment, via this YouTube video, that just because a group refers to themselves as being anti-something bad does not mean that they are actually fighting against that bad thing, and that they may very well, in fact, be guilty of the bad thing that they claim to be against? That is truly a fascinating and inspiring concept that has never once entered my own brain, and that I am just now considering now, thanks to you in this YouTube video right now, right here, on this mortal plane we call reality.
Speaking of pointless documents, I didn't think that selling door-to-door insurance was really my calling in life. It wasn't meaningfully impacting the world, in fact it was making the world worse, and I didn't want to lie to people.
So you became an actor, and not just any actor, but an actor in commercials selling products that you've never heard of before.
I did that one day's training, and then I never went back. Instead, I got a job doing something much more humiliating. Having failed to find a clever way around it, I took a job in a bar, and it was okay. I chose that bar in particular because I fancied myself a stand-up comedian at the time, and they let me tell jokes on a little stage in the corner.
Wow, that was very nice of them.
It did not go well because I was 19 and I was not funny.
Can't relate. I was hilarious when I was 19.
And then after my set, I had to put on my work shirt and clear the glasses of the people in front of whom I had just bombed. So that was humiliating. The bar was owned by a guy called Bruno, and he paid me the New Zealand minimum wage, which back then was about $15 an hour.
Oh no, please, you're not saying what I think you're saying, are you?
The cost of a pint in that pub was about $8 or $9. So as I was working, I got to thinking, by pouring just 4 pints, I've made Bruno double what it cost to hire me for the whole hour.
Wait, but no, you're not the only person who had to be employed for this. You're not the only person who contributed to this. It didn't go from $0 to $9 because you poured something. Couldn't the person who delivers it on the truck make the same claim? Like, oh, I get paid this amount, but I bring in this amount worth of product, which is way more. So really, I should be making that much. And then the person who unloads the truck could say, well, here's this amount of product that wouldn't be here otherwise. But I'm only making this amount, so shouldn't I be making more? And then all the way back at the factory where the drink is first brewed, the person brewing it could say, hey, because of me, this amount of drink has been brewed, so why aren't I seeing that money? And then the people who deliver the ingredient, you see what I'm getting at? Like, every single person who's involved in getting something from point A to point B isn't the sole person who can be thanked for making that much money. You didn't make the drink, you poured it. You pulled a lever. I'm not saying you did nothing, you did work. And you did it for hours a day, you deserve to get paid for that, of course. But to say, you see that $9 in that glass? That was me, I did that. Like, you were just the last person in the chain? You were the person that the customer handed the money to? You saying, like, you see it was me who made you that $9, Bruno, is like the person who comes into a fight at the last minute, hits the enemy once when it's on its lowest health and kills it, and then takes all of the experience. You know, there are times at my job where one day I'll be one of the people who takes all the stuff off of the truck when it comes. Then the next day I'll be one of the people processing the stuff from the truck. Then the next day I'll be one of the people wheeling the stuff out onto the floor. So imagine someone who does those 3 jobs 3 days in a row, one day after the other, saying at the end of each day, well, because of me, this amount of money worth of product is here that wouldn't be here otherwise. So really, I should be seeing that amount. And just getting paid for it like 3 times over. Imagine like, hey, can you pass me the orange juice? Well, you know, this is a $5 carton of orange juice. So if I hand it to you, that'll be $5 worth of orange juice that you wouldn't have otherwise had. So you're gonna have to pay me $5 for it. If we're gonna say that pouring the drink entitles you to the entire cost of the drink, does that mean if the customer were to pour the drink for themselves, they would be entitled to $9? which they could then use to pay for the $9 that the drink costs. Which means that any given customer could just walk into the bar, pour themselves a drink, and then walk out because their debt cancels out. This is a fun little route to go down.
And in an hour, I can pour 50, 100, more pints if there's a rush on.
Wow, it's almost like it's not a particularly difficult job to do if you can do it 50 to 100 times within an hour. That's not to say that your job isn't hard. It's hard because you have to do it 50 to 100 times an hour. But like I said, pouring that pint is not $9 worth of labor.
So he must be raking it in.
What? No, he has to pay to keep the business running, and pay for all the food and all the other employees besides you. He's got to pay the electric bill, he's got to pay to keep the place maintained.
Although actually, that's not all profit, because he's got to pay for the beer and the cleaning and the electricity and the food and stuff.
Oh, okay, thank God, you realize that.
But still, he must be doing pretty well.
Oh, okay, we've moved from raking it in to doing pretty well. You make this very bold claim about, like, the disparity between what you're getting paid and how much money he's making. Then you correct yourself and say, actually, no, that's not true. But then right at the end, you throw in a, but still, though. That way you can still kind of stand by that initial point and pretend like nothing's changed from there, while also having the wiggle room to say that, hey, you corrected yourself. Bruno's making all this money, and it's all because of me, who makes barely any money. Actually, no, there's a bunch of people he has to pay and a bunch of expenses. But still, though.
And actually, the only way that he gets money to pay for any of that stuff is because I'm here doing the work behind the bar.
Oh, the only reason. No, not the only reason. It's not just because you're serving drinks behind the bar. It's because of the people who made the drinks in the first place and sold it to him. It's because of the people who drove the truck that brought the drinks over here. It's because of the people who unloaded the truck. And it's from him making the decisions to keep the place running behind the scenes. And it's because of the custodians that keep the place clean. It's because of a lot of people. Once again, you are just the last person in the chain, and therefore the person who gets handed the money by the customer. You know those races where people, like, pass off the baton to the next racer? Imagine the last guy to get the baton being like, you know, the only reason we crossed the finish line is because I didn't shit my pants in the middle of the race. No, everyone contributed. You were just the last one.
And then the customer was like, can I have my pint or not? And I was like, yeah, sorry. If Bruno didn't come in, as he frequently didn't, we'd have just kept going. If the bar staff don't come in, no money gets made.
Well, hold on, does Bruno do nothing? When you say he often doesn't show up, does that mean he's only scheduled for some days out of the week? Or does that mean he often doesn't show up when he's scheduled? Because the latter is worse than the former, but even if it's the latter, that still doesn't mean he's doing nothing. Just because somebody doesn't come in on days that they're supposed to come in doesn't mean that they're not contributing anything. It might be the case that Bruno is just the type of boss who sits on his ass and lets everyone else do all the work. But it also might not be the case. Hell, there are days that I haven't shown up to work. And the business doesn't fall apart because of that. That doesn't mean that I'm useless. That just means that my job isn't so urgent that the place will fall apart if I don't do it. Hell, the truck that delivers stuff to us comes once a week. Some days it's late by a few hours. Other days it doesn't show up at all and it comes the next day or the day after that. But we still get by. Once again, the reason why it's so essential for you to be there is because you are the person directly involved with handing the customer their drink and getting handed the money back. So of course you're going to have to be there for every single transaction that's made.
As we've seen with the pandemic, CEOs, hedge fund managers, landlords, they can all stop working and it's basically fine.
X to doubt.
If supermarket assistants stop working, or bus drivers, or cleaners, then everything falls apart. The profit doesn't come from the people at the top. It comes from the people at the bottom. 37% of British workers believe that their job makes no meaningful contribution to the world. It comes from the people at the bottom.
Bit by bit, the pieces fit, the Soviet machine advances.
Okay, putting in the Karl Marx meme as a joke doesn't really work when you're, like, actually putting forth Marxist ideas. Like, that's not a joke, that's just a factual descriptor of what you're doing. Also, like, I'm sure this isn't news to anyone who's already familiar with Karl Marx, but, like, I'm just now noticing his mustache is the only part of his hair that isn't gray.
That job, working in the pub, was the first time it really struck me that there's a world of difference between somebody who works to produce something.
Right, so not you.
Like a pint.
You didn't produce the pint, somebody else did. You just poured it into a container that holds roughly a pint full of liquid and therefore can technically be called a pint.
Or a chair, or a microwave, or a delicious can of fish soup. And the person who owns and then sells it.
Oh, so like you. Although, to be fair, you didn't own the drink, you just sold it. Yeah, come to think of it, you don't really fit into that dichotomy, do you? On the one hand, you didn't make the drinks, but on the other hand, you didn't own the drinks either, you just sold them. It's almost as though your entire involvement in this chain is to pour the drink for the customer and then accept money from the customer in exchange. A job for which you were hired, and then paid, because that was your job.
I had heard the term working class before, but that was the first time it really clicked. Like a lot of people, I thought class just had something to do with how much money you had, or where you went to school, or especially in the UK, what sort of an accent you've got. But working there, I was like, that stuff's mainly just aesthetic, isn't it?
How much money you have is not just aesthetic. Where you went to school is only kind of aesthetic, depending. And the accent thing is, yeah, that one's aesthetic. You're right on that one. How much money you have has a very tangible influence on your life, though.
The real divide is between people who get money by owning stuff, like Bruno does.
He doesn't get money simply by owning it. He has to sell it. He has to buy more of it when they run out. He buys it en masse to get it at a lower price, and he sells it for a higher price because customers are paying for the convenience of being able to get it right there instead of having to order it from a production plant.
And people who don't own anything, so all they have is their ability to work. The image I had in my head of a working class job was like a man in a factory. But that's just because historically, men working in factories were easier to organize into unions, because they were already in one place. Even in Marx's time, there weren't actually that many people doing factory jobs, compared to the number of boot polishers, cab drivers, nurses, teachers, sex workers, and so on. A lot of those jobs were historically done by women or people of color, and so they tended to just get overlooked.
I thought you just said that they were overlooked because they didn't all work in the same place and weren't as easy to unionize like factory workers were.
And they still are. I've heard people say today that we are all middle class now because the factory jobs have gone overseas. As if our Uber drivers and baristas and cleaners are all just invisible. Speaking of people who usually got overlooked, my co-workers were a pretty chill bunch, especially this one guy, Javier, who was the hardest working person I've ever met. He cleaned and stacked those glasses so fast it was a blur. It was like watching someone do Dragon Ball Z on crockery. He was from Brazil, I think, and he was working a minimum wage job in New Zealand to send money back to his family. I didn't ask how he ended up in that situation, but I felt kind of sorry for him. Because the way the managers and the customers looked at him and spoke to him, compared to me, a white person with an English accent, was really obvious. What I came to realize is that he had to work that hard.
Right, because he had a family to support.
In order to be allowed to stay.
Oh, or that, I guess.
And yet, cruelly, he would never be recognized for his hard work. The promise is that if you work hard, you can get ahead. But in Javier's case, that just wasn't going to happen. There wasn't a specific rule barring him from a promotion or a raise, but he just obviously wasn't going to get one. No matter how hard he worked, he was going to stay working class, maybe for the rest of his life. And presumably his children would too, which would affect their chances of being in the right room with the right people or getting the right education to escape the poverty trap. And this isn't me disparaging him or calling him a victim or anything.
If we're committed to anti-racism, and we've said that we are, then how can we be racist?
I mean, if what you say is true, and I guess I just kind of have to go off your word that it's true, then yeah, he would have in fact been a victim. If people were being racist towards him, then he was in fact a victim of racism. He was on the receiving end of something bad. He was a victim of that thing. I take it what you're getting at is that you're not accusing him of, like, being a victim inherently, like, as a result of some sort of inherent character flaw of his, which, yeah, I agree with.
On the contrary, he was a legend and a damn good classy, but undoubtedly, he was forced unfairly to live that way because he wasn't white. So that Bruno could make money off him. And Bruno wasn't a bad guy. He was actually kind of nice.
I mean, you did kind of just accuse him of being racist. Unless he wasn't being racist towards Javier, and it was just everyone else, in which case, wouldn't that mean it's the person at the top who was actually correct and the people underneath him who were incorrect?
On my last night working there, a female customer sexually assaulted me in a corridor as he happened to be walking past.
Oh, that's not good. I'm sorry that happened to you. I wish that had not happened.
And he actually told her off on my behalf, which was cool of him.
I agree. That was cool of him. Based Bruno.
But
Oh man, there's a but.
that was just the way the place ran. Me and Javier were on the same team because we had nothing to sell but our labor, even though we were from really different backgrounds, different countries even. And Bruno, he just wasn't on our side.
I mean, I feel like he was on your side when he was defending you against a sexual assaulter. I also feel like he was on your side when he was, paying you money. Why is there a content warning for racism now? Racism has already come up.
After my adventures in New Zealand, I came back to the UK. I got a first-class degree in...
How come so many people were stuck doing useless things? Or unemployed completely, when there's so much work in the world that needs to be done? We've got a hell of a lot of climate-related stuff to do. Feels like we could squeeze a few jobs out of that. We need nurses, we need teachers, we need carers.
I got a first-class degree in philosophy from one of the best universities in the world.
Some people like to answer that question by saying that young people aren't doing those jobs. They're all doing useless degrees in media studies and critical race theory and starting Patreon campaigns and inventing 5 new genders when they should be doing STEM.
And then I moved back to my hometown and got a job in a pub because... economy. Should have done STEM instead of inventing all those extra genders!
I mean, yeah, you probably should have.
The manager, who I'll call Dave, was about 7 feet tall,
Based?
jacked,
Based?
and very accustomed to getting his own way.
Okay, that one's less based, depending on what you mean.
You know, one of those managers who likes to think that he's one of the gang but has no idea how intimidating he actually is.
Wait, is he intimidating because of his personality? Like that thing you said about how he's always used to getting his own way? Or is he intimidating because he's tall and jacked? Because that's not his fault. If people are intimidated by that, that's their problem.
The chef was one of the biggest assholes I have ever met in my life. When talking to the female staff members, he had 2 modes: sexual harassment or shouting. Most shifts, he managed to make someone cry. One time, me and some of the other staff complained, but Dave couldn't fire him because then we'd have to close down for a couple of days and get another chef and get all the menus reprinted.
Let it be remembered that the fact that people at the bottom can't be fired without it affecting the workflow as previously cited is a good thing.
CEOs, hedge fund managers, landlords, they can all stop working and it's basically fine. If supermarket assistants stop working, or bus drivers, or cleaners, then everything falls apart. The profit doesn't come from the people at the top. It comes from the people at the bottom.
By the way, pro tip. If you ever go to an English pub for food, either get a burger or fish and chips, because they're just about the only things that are actually cooked on the premises. The Sunday roast arrived pre-cooked on Friday night and was heated up in the microwave.
I mean, is that true for every British pub, or is that just true for the one that you worked at? I mean, surely you aren't taking negative experiences from places you've worked at and applying them broadly to the world at large, are you?
The owner of the place, who I'll call Ebenezer Scrooge,
Subtle.
was also an asshole.
Oh, I wouldn't have guessed. Speaking of Ebenezer Scrooge, look at this little Lego set I got. It was a promotional deal. It came free with purchase. Isn't it nice? I like it.
He would come by maybe once a week, wave to the regulars, pull a couple of pints, then find some excuse to steal the contents of the tip jar.
Oh. Well, that's not good.
He also had a security camera specifically to watch the staff on the till. And that got me thinking. If he wanted to steal the tips, there was nothing any of us could do. He had a camera watching us, but we didn't have a camera watching him. He kept a record of every transaction to make sure we didn't steal from him.
I agree in principle. Like, it is bad that he is taking money out of the tip jar, but those are 2 separate things, technically. In the same way that you can't take money out of the cash register, he also can't take money out of the cash register. He can't take out money that is meant to go towards your paycheck. That is a set agreement written in paper as to how he is supposed to pay you. The money in the register is a set amount of money gotten through a specific set of transactions meant to be divvied up in a specific way, as opposed to the tip jar, which is just a jar of money that people have voluntarily put however much money they want into as just like a little oh, hey, keep up the good work kind of thing. I don't know what the legality is of taking money out of the tip jar in the specific place you worked at the specific time you worked. Once again, I agree in principle, taking money out of the tip jar is in fact bad, but it is still a different thing than taking money out of the register. I guess an argument you could make in terms of hypocrisy is that he probably wouldn't have been okay with any of you guys taking money out of the tip jar. If you want to argue that there's some sort of law that should exist, determining what can and can't be done with money in a tip jar, I might agree with that, depending on what the law is.
But when he gave us our paychecks at the end of the month, we just had to trust that it was right.
I mean, literally, you can calculate it yourself and find out whether it's the correct amount.
When Dave gave us our shifts, we just had to trust that he hadn't booked us for illegally long working hours.
I mean, you could check the laws on that.
The onus was on us to check the law.
Oh, I mean, yes. In that case, yes. If you think that somebody might be lying to you, the only way to confirm that is to check for yourself. That is true. People who are lying to you tend not to tell you that they are lying to you. I agree. I guess the only way around that is that they could post what the laws are, like in the workplace. But even then, they could post the wrong ones, or they could say that they posted all of them when actually they left out one or two of them. No matter what, at some point you are going to have to confirm that the person telling you something is not lying, if you want to be sure about it.
And to try and persuade him to change it if he had.
Yes, if somebody is routinely doing something wrong, especially if they are doing it on purpose, the only way to stop them is to convince them that they should stop. That's not a job thing, that is just a thing.
I used to dread going into work in that place. The powerlessness made me feel humiliated, less than a human being. I felt sorry for my co-workers. I felt sorry for anyone who had to do a job like that. I even felt a little bit sorry for Dave, who was ostensibly on our side, but had been turned into a lapdog for a man who would surely sack him the second he stopped being profitable. I felt sorry for the millions of people for whom that job would have been a godsend, but who would be left to die in the streets because the Scrooges of the world couldn't find a way to squeeze money out of them. Over time, I stopped feeling sorry for anyone.
That's weird.
And I just resented everybody in there.
That's even weirder.
Including myself.
That's even weirder than that.
Both for landing in the job and for not being tough enough to hack it. When I looked at the TV and I saw people talking about freedom and democracy and choices, I got angry because I felt it was just a bad joke.
Work makes a mockery of freedom.
Yeah, if you say so, buddy. Just work makes a mockery of freedom. If you say so, buddy.
The official line is that we all have rights and live in a democracy. Other unfortunates who aren't free like we are have to live in police states. These victims obey orders or else, no matter how arbitrary. The authorities keep them under regular surveillance. State bureaucrats control even the smaller details of everyday life. The officials who push them around are answerable only to higher-ups, public or private. Either way, dissent and disobedience are punished. Informers report regularly to the authorities. All this is supposed to be a very bad thing, and so it is, although it is nothing but a description of the modern workplace.
Oh, bro. Oh, that is, oh my god, bro, that is so, oh. Whoa, oh my god, that is, bro, that is so bro. That's crazy. Oh my god, that is, you have opened my eyes. That is, Hey, Mrs. Johnson, if slavery is illegal, how come I still have to do my math homework? Checkmate, liberals. I have to do my job at my job, literally 1984.
But I don't like to be negative.
That is literally one of the most negative things I've ever heard anybody say in my entire life. You compared working at a bad job to living in a police state.
I thought that before I painted my face in Joker makeup and emptied the cash register...
Emptying the cash register would have deprived your fellow coworkers of their wages as well. So, good thing you didn't do that.
I should try and think about it from Scrooge's position.
Okay, maybe start by not calling him Scrooge. Or if he really is so terrible that the name Scrooge is applicable, maybe try thinking of things from Bruno's point of view instead?
Wasn't he doing me a favor by giving me a job?
Not a favor, it was a contractual agreement from which both parties benefited.
Hell, didn't I literally walk in there and ask for one?
Yes.
Wasn't I technically free to leave at any time?
Yes.
Was it possible that I resented him more for his success than the control he had over me?
I wouldn't go that far. I'd say it was the unethical things he did and the poor decisions he made with that control.
Would I feel better if I just worked really hard? And then I'd be able to go home at the end of the day feeling proud that I had made the customers really happy.
Maybe. Seemed to work with the acting gig. Me personally, I focus more on me doing my job makes it easier for my coworkers to do their jobs.
What if I tried to look at the whole situation from the point of view of a job creator?
Oh yeah, no, that could be really interesting, you know? You could see the responsibilities that they have to keep up with, the decisions that have to be made, sort of the gears that turn behind the scenes that keep everything going. the push and pull of the whole thing. You know, maybe it'll give a better insight into what causes the problems that go on and what might need to be changed. You fucking done, mate?
Hola, amigos!
Why Spanish? Surely if you're gonna go for any foreign language, it would be Romanian, right? I mean, I guess vampires can be Hispanic. There's nothing in the rules that says they can't be. You know, the chupacabras is technically a Hispanic vampire. Chupacabras are vampires. They suck blood. It's just goat blood instead of human blood. That's what chupacabras means. You know what's a weird thing about the chupacabras? It's a surprisingly young myth. The first sighting was in 1995. That's weird. That's weird to me. The Francis Ford Coppola Dracula movie is older than the chupacabras.
I have a proposition for you. I represent the interests of an investment fund, who represent a bank, who represent another bank, who represent a foreign government, who pretend to represent their people, but actually represent the interests of an American hotel chain. And we would like to build a luxury 5-star resort on Cuba, where you live.
Oh, Cuba, that's why you're speaking Spanish. Okay.
The hotel will have a pool.
Cool.
A spa.
Cool.
A gym.
Cool.
A private strip of beach. 300 suites. 4 restaurants and bars.
Cool.
Daycare facilities.
Cool.
And a business center for corporate event hire.
Okay, that one's kind of lame.
We will create upwards of 500 jobs.
Cool.
And attract international customers to your island. Guests will come, they'll stay in the hotel, they'll spend money in the local businesses, which makes Cubans rich, so everybody wins. Excuse me. Ni hao, Chen Chun Cheng. Yes, I'm talking with the Cubans now. We're very excited to build this hotel for you. It's my boss.
Oh my god, your boss actually was some Asian.
Just give me 2 minutes. Thank you. Yes, I told them it would attract lots of wealthy international tourists to the island.
Well, that would be true, wouldn't it?
No, of course not, no. No, the resort is designed to keep the guests inside by providing everything that they need on site. I mean, they might go into town to buy a souvenir or something, but they'll spend most of their time by the pool or in the bars or the restaurants, and those are all owned by you. Yes, it is quite clever, isn't it?
Oh, is that meant to be like some kind of own? That like, oh, money won't actually go towards Cubans because they'll just spend it at the American companies. But like, money would still go towards Cubans. It would go towards the Cubans working at the hotel, getting paid by the hotel. That is still an
everybody wins
scenario. I guess saying that the tourists will go and support local businesses in your pitch is pretty disingenuous. But if you'd removed that part, I feel like this scenario is still fine, like in concept.
Well, they'll get minimum wage jobs out of it. Keeps them out of trouble.
Well, it keeps them out of not having a job. Unless there's already other jobs to work at there, in which case they don't have to work at the hotel, and would only be doing so out of their own choice because it's a preferable option to them.
Well, if you don't want to be seen doing business in Cuba, then that's not a problem. We can set up a shell company in Panama or the Canary Islands or somewhere where the taxman can't get his grubby fingers, and then the shell company will officially own the hotel, but you'll own the shell company, so the profits will all go to you. And that way, if there's a problem with the working conditions or there's an accident or something, it doesn't get back to you.
If your point is that greedy corporations will exploit loopholes in order to avoid taking accountability for the way their own company operates, and that is bad, I agree. I agree that is bad. I feel like maybe the solution to that is to just plug up those loopholes, and not simply to throw out the entire concept of doing business in foreign countries.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to employ some people in the shell company to do bullshit jobs, creating documents, that sort of thing, to make sure it seems legit.
Credit where credit is due. I think this is an actual example of a bullshit job. Literally a job that's created in order to make it look like something is going on when it's not. As opposed to the previous examples of an actual legitimate job working for the NHS, which was only made impotent by unfortunate timing, and a literal scam designed to be a scam that successfully acted as a scam.
Yes, creating jobs. That's what it's all about.
I mean, the Cuban nationals being employed by the hotel in Cuba are in fact getting jobs out of it. The existence of bullshit jobs on top of that does not change the fact that this is indeed creating legitimate jobs.
All right. Zaijian Zhucheng, give my regards to the General Secretary. Sorry about that. That was my employer. He's very keen to help your country become delicious on the international stage. I mean, competitive on the international stage. What's that? Why does Cuba need foreign investment?
I mean, it doesn't need it. It'd be nice to have, though.
Well, because you're poor. And I'm sure that's just bad luck.
No, it was communism.
I'm sure that nobody's deliberately kept you poor by imposing trade sanctions on you at the...
Hey now. First you were saying that Cuba doesn't need foreign money. Now you're saying that the singular thing keeping them in poverty is that they can't do business with the United States.
I'm sure that nobody's deliberately kept you poor by imposing trade sanctions on you at the behest of American oil companies. Don't Google it.
No, don't worry, I won't. If you're not going to put in the work, I won't either.
What's that? You say that you want to come and work in my country instead of doing a minimum wage job there?
Okay, yeah, a lot of people do move from foreign countries to the US to get a better paying job. But I'm sure plenty of people want to stay in their home country and work there. Not everybody wants to make the journey to a foreign country just to get a better job.
Also, wasn't the whole point of the story with Javier that he was going to be kept in poverty forever because he's an immigrant?
No. I'm afraid that won't be possible unless you have what we in English call a visa.
Oh, cool. Well, that answers it then. They can get a visa.
Comprende? See? You just have to stay in your own country.
Or get a visa, like you said. Is getting a visa too hard? Okay, then it should be easier to get a visa. Say that.
And work very hard to make it better. By working for us. What's that? You say that this is imperialism?
It is literally a hotel.
You say that we're foreign dogs?
That's xenophobic. Like, literally the insult is foreign.
You say you'd rather own the hotel yourselves?
Oh, well, too bad. Because it's your hotel that your company paid for to have built. If they want their own hotel, they can make their own hotel or buy one from someone else for a set amount of money that is agreed upon by both parties involved, as buying things often works. Hey, can you just build a hotel at great cost to yourself and no benefit, and then just give it to me? I just want one. I just want to have one, and you should give me one. Because...
Well, next you'll be saying that you want to own your own country's natural resources.
Bro, it is literally one hotel in all of Cuba.
And make sure the money from them goes to benefit the people of your country rather than the owners of foreign capital. Oh, God. One moment, please. Good morning, Vice President. Oh, Madam Vice President, indeed. I'll get straight to the point. How do you feel about a war with Cuba?
Okay, so you specifically pointed out Madam Vice President. Is Kamala Harris intent on starting a war with Cuba? Because I'm no fan of Kamala Harris, but this is news to me.
I did try.
No, you didn't, you fucking liar.
But working in that pub?
Oh yeah, in case any of you guys forgot, because I myself almost forgot. This was supposed to be a thought exercise of, like, putting yourself into the shoes of a guy who owns a pub, and instead it turned into the representative for
the interests of an investment fund, who represent a bank, who represent another bank, who represent a foreign government, who pretend to represent their people, but actually represent the interests of an American hotel chain.
Who has a direct line to the Vice President of the United States and can start a war with Cuba with a phone call, and is also
a fucking vampire!
It kind of felt like the whole enterprise was more about keeping me under control than putting money in my pocket.
Well, it's actually about both. You see, you do what he says, and then he gives you money. That's how jobs work.
And I don't think that was just because Scrooge was an asshole. He could have been really nice. Bruno was. But that wouldn't have made a difference to the amount of control he had over me.
Oh, so even if your boss isn't telling you to do anything unreasonable, it's still bad. You being asked to do your job if you want to get paid for your job is bad. Okay.
Consider another rich person and a famously nice guy, Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie was a Scottish immigrant to the United States who eventually became the richest man in the country. By today's standards, he was a multi-billionaire. And he was also, fun fact, the real-life inspiration for the character of Scrooge McDuck. I'm not making that up.
Well, you're not making that up, but somebody else may very well have, because it's actually just a rumor and not confirmed. In fact, I'd say the more likely explanation for the inspiration for Scrooge McDuck is probably, oh gosh, I don't know, Ebenezer Scrooge? Just throwing that one out there. The only real connection I can see between Andrew Carnegie and Scrooge McDuck, other than being rich, which, you know, is also true of Ebenezer Scrooge, is that they're both Scottish. But if I had to guess why they made him Scottish, I would assume it's just because his last name is McDuck. And if I had to guess why his last name was McDuck, then it would probably be because, like, something McSomething is a very common joke name. So it's like, oh, he's a duck who's like Scrooge. He's Scrooge McDuck. And then only afterwards did they think to themselves, oh, well, if his last name is McDuck, then I guess that means he's Scottish, so we could give him a Scottish accent. Or at least that's what I would have said if I did not then learn that Scrooge McDuck was likely influenced by another Donald Duck character who only appeared in a World War II propaganda piece, encouraging Americans to be frugal, that way they could spend more money on the war effort. Donald Duck gets like the good angel, bad angel on his shoulder, except the bad angel who spends all his money on luxuries turns out to be Hitler in disguise, and the good angel who saves his money turns out to be Scottish. I don't know why they keep making Donald Duck characters Scottish, but okay. Is Donald a Scottish name? Oh, no, yeah, it is a Scottish name. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Comes from the name Donal, like the guy from the Star Wars. I guess there has been precedent this whole time for Donald Duck to be Scottish. Does this mean Mickey Mouse is Irish? I also learned, because of looking into this fact for this video, that apparently Scrooge McDuck is part of Clan MacDuck. It's amazing how much Donald Duck lore came from him being given a Scottish name, presumably solely because Donald begins with the letter D, and so does Duck. I also have the Lego of Scrooge McDuck. The fact that I have the Lego of Scrooge McDuck and Ebenezer Scrooge is a complete coincidence. The only reason that I have the Lego Scrooge McDuck is because he has a top hat piece. The normal Lego top hat piece just goes on the stud on top of a Lego person's head, but Scrooge McDuck doesn't have a stud on top of his head, because he is a duck. So his hat has a little pin that goes into a little hole on top of his head, and I just thought it'd be useful to have a little top hat piece that could connect differently than the usual Lego top hat piece. Look at this, the current Lego baseball cap piece has the same little hole on top of it, which means you can have a guy wearing a baseball cap, wearing a top hat, and I just think that's pretty neat. We were talking about economics.
Carnegie wrote an essay in 1889 called The Gospel of Wealth, which is one of the most influential bits of philosophy I think I've ever read in my life. I've been hearing these arguments almost verbatim since I was born. The idea that the best way to help poor people is to give them a job as a ladder out of poverty.
Yes.
That's Carnegie. The idea that socialists are just lazy and they resent rich people for their success.
I wouldn't want to paint with a broad brush. Some of them do, yeah.
That's Carnegie. The idea that wealth is created not by labor, but by the organization and intelligence of the people at the top.
A bit of column A, a bit of column B. I imagine it varies from case to case as well. I don't want to say that labor is not an important part of the process. You kind of need labor in order for the people at the top to have something to organize in the first place.
That's Carnegie. The idea that giving aid directly to the poor will make them dependent and hurt them more in the long run.
Once again, I think that's a little more case by case. I'm sure some people could definitely benefit from some aid.
That's Carnegie. Skiing down a mountain of gold coins and making Christmas trees out of dollar bills. Okay, apparently that one was actually Scrooge McDuck.
I feel like he was known more so for swimming in it than skiing on it.
But if Carnegie had had that much gold, I bet you he would have tried it. A lot of these ideas he pinched from a philosopher called Herbert Spencer, who I talked about in my video on Charles Darwin. But Carnegie updated them. He brought them back. And more importantly, he made them seem like kindness.
Are you intending to tell me, last name tube, first name philosophy, that a person could take an idea that is actually harmful or negative and package it in such a fashion that it could pass itself off to various people as being an act of kindness when in actuality it would bring harm to other people? The neurons in my brain have never fired off in such a fashion that such a concept has ever appeared inside of my own mind until this very second right now.
Because by most accounts, he was a pretty nice guy. He gave away billions of dollars in today's money.
Based.
And he encouraged rich people to give their wealth away for the public good rather than hoard it.
Based.
Carnegie Hall in New York City is named after him because he paid for it.
Based.
But here's the kicker. Who gets to decide what the public good is? Well, Andrew Carnegie does, of course.
Who gets to decide what causes Andrew Carnegie will support? Why, Andrew Carnegie, of course.
He decided that the people of New York would benefit from a big fancy concert hall.
Also, like 1,000 libraries. I think that's the go-to thing when talking about Andrew Carnegie. But I guess libraries don't sound bourgeois enough for socialists to turn their noses up at.
He decided that the people of New York would benefit from a big fancy concert hall, and undoubtedly, many of them have. But he didn't go to the people and say, hey, I've got a few spare $1 million, what do you need? Because that would have put them in control. Maybe they could have voted on what to do with that money. And maybe they would have voted to build a concert hall, but maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd have said, we want you to pay your taxes, Andrew Carnegie.
That's a weird series of question and answer. Hey guys, I've got some money I was planning on donating to a charitable cause. Which charitable cause should it be? Pay your taxes. Did Andrew Carnegie not pay his taxes? Was he not doing this in addition to paying his taxes? If not, then yeah, I agree, that's bad. Andrew Carnegie should have paid his taxes. If that's not the case, then that's fine. If he did pay his taxes, then that's all he had to do, and he was kind enough to donate more money on top of that.
We want to take that money and spend it on housing and food, so then we can control our own lives, and then maybe we wouldn't have to work for you anymore, you charming yet insidious Scottish duck.
That's xenophobic. And maybe racist, depending on how ducks factor into this.
Carnegie described himself as an agent of the poor. But an agent is somebody who works on your behalf and who you can recall if you want to.
I can't make Andrew Carnegie stop donating money to libraries and music halls. He won't stop. Somebody make him stop.
That's not what he's describing. What he's describing is called...
What term would you prefer? A buddy to the poor? A loot box to the poor?
Technocracy. A system of government...
Andrew Carnegie is not the government. He literally just paid for stuff.
...in which the most competent people have control.
The only thing he has control over is his own money, which he then relinquishes control over when he donates it to someone else.
But they are also the people who decide what competent means. And therefore, in my opinion, that is a dictatorship with brunch.
Andrew Carnegie is not a dictator. He was literally just a guy who paid for stuff.
I don't care if you call it Carnegie Hall, or the Bezos Academy, or the Gates Foundation.
What if you call it the library?
I don't want presents from rich people.
Okay, then don't take any. Next time you go into a library, make sure it wasn't paid for with money donated by Andrew Carnegie. Also, you do want presents from rich people. You said you did.
Hey, I've got a few spare $1 million. What do you need?
You just wanted them to be different presents.
We want to take that money and spend it on housing and food.
Also, I think building a hotel in Cuba and then just giving it to a bunch of Cubans...
You say you'd rather own the hotel yourselves?
Might count as presents from rich people.
I want control over my own life. When I play Fallout New Vegas, I kill Mr. House every goddamn time.
Okay.
And working in that pub, I didn't feel like any of us were in control. Except Scrooge.
I didn't feel like any of us had a say in what we did, except for the guy who paid us to do those things.
There was a guy who used to come in every day as soon as we opened, and he would order a pint of John Smith's, the cheapest ale we had. And then he'd order another one, and another one, and another one, all day, counting out his change on the bar. He was an alcoholic, and he was killing himself. He was killing himself with John Smith's. But I had to serve him, because Scrooge said I did.
Oh, so you wanted to control what he could and couldn't do? Maybe he wanted to control his own life, huh? Ever notice how it's always the sober people who decide what sobriety is?
I remember the night that I decided to quit. It was late and my shift was supposed to have ended, but Scrooge had a policy of never asking the regulars to leave, even if they stayed past closing. There was this one regular, Eddie, who was in there drinking with his girlfriend, and I'd spoken to them a couple of times before, so I guess that they felt comfortable enough to start saying some incredibly racist shit. So Eddie starts telling me about how there's too many black people in Liverpool.
I don't know if I'd call it incredibly racist. It's certainly not good. I feel like you could talk them down from that position pretty easily, depending on what they mean.
So I push back a little bit. I'm like, come on, man, what do you mean too many? Like, black people can live wherever they want, dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the response you should have.
And his girlfriend starts joining in, and she says she won't go to Liverpool because black men are all rapists.
Okay, never mind. No, you're right. That is incredibly racist. I think that crosses the threshold. You were right on that one. That's like other racists would look at that and be like, damn, that's racist. Like if you just walked up to like an actual Klansman and said, hey, do you think all black men are rapists? They would probably be like, I mean, not all of them. No, that one takes the cake for sure.
She's seen it on the news.
I want to know which news station told her that, just out of morbid curiosity.
And at this point, I don't know what the hell to say. Like, it's late and I'm tired and I'm actually a little insulted that they think that they can share this garbage with me and like they think I'll be on their side with it.
Well, most racist people believe that the racist things they say are, true. That's why they believe them. As far as they're concerned, they're just telling you the truth, so they see nothing wrong with it.
So I say to him, Eddie, unless he's ordering a drink, never speak to me again in your life. Dave calls me over, and he tells me off for speaking to the regulars like that. I decided then and there that I had to take this YouTube gig full time.
Let it be noted that Philosophy Tube was more convinced to quit by having to be nice to racist customers than by having to let a man kill himself through alcohol poisoning. To be fair, the Avengers did the same thing.
I still have to see people say a lot of awful shit, but at least when they do it in my comment section, I can kick them out.
Oh, epic ponage. For the win. I can't help but think that, given that the job you went into was doing a full-time YouTube channel where you break down, different ideologies or systems that you consider to be in some way flawed or problematic, that if you had kept that job, and if you had kept talking to those two customers, you might have been able to convince them that they were wrong. The girlfriend might have been a tougher nut to crack, given the, absoluteness of her views. Then again, she said she learned it on the news, right? So maybe if you just put on a tie and held up a microphone, she would have believed anything you said. Maybe she's the easy one.
I got a job in a cafe just across the road.
Oh, just across the road. So, did you have to look at Mr. and Mrs. Racism through the window every day when you went to work?
It was trying to transform itself into a nighttime venue for live music. It was a tiny place, only about 50 covers, and the management didn't really know what they were doing.
What do you mean the management didn't know what they were doing? Are you implying that the decisions made by management are important to whether or not the business is successful? I thought all the money came from the people at the bottom, not the people at the top. I thought organization from people at the top had nothing to do with whether or not a business was successful. That's nega Carnegie.
Which was great, because it meant they were pretty relaxed. I stood behind the till, selling bottles of beer and occasionally taking food to the tables. The crowd were mainly older folks, just looking for a relaxed evening. The musicians were all local folk artists from Northumberland who played acoustic sets, so it was just a really relaxed atmosphere. Most of the time I'd just stand there or lean on the backboard because the manager was chill and he'd let you do that. And then he'd come by and he'd be like, do you want a beer? And I'd be like, yeah, all right. So I just have a beer and listen to the music and help the customers when they needed it.
Wow, this place sounds really nice.
The philosopher Bertrand Russell.
Oh, and of course the philosopher Bertrand Russell has to come along and ruin it.
Says that the way we currently think about work is really wasteful. Not just a waste of resources, although to be clear, having a bunch of people doing jobs that don't need to be done is really bad for the climate and one of the best things we could do would be to stop, but also a waste of people. He says that with the aid of modern technic...
I don't actually have any Lego Technic sets. They're not my cup of tea.
We could produce the things that humanity needs to survive in far fewer hours than we currently work. Just imagine what you could do if you worked 4 hours a day instead of 8. Well, let's be honest, probably more than 8. You could write the next great novel.
You could have written the next great novel in your first job at the NHS.
Or paint a beautiful painting. Or
you might have been able to do that at the NHS too, depending on how good your coworkers looked nude.
Or come up with a brilliant idea no one's thought of.
You could have done that at the NHS. And with the additional thing of like, you're getting paid to be there. I mean, you think about it. If you just kept your NHS job the whole time, you could write video scripts for your YouTube channel while you're at the NHS. You'd get paid to write for the job you get paid for.
How many Einsteins or Beyoncés or Michelangelos or Javiers are mopping floors right now in office buildings where other people get paid obscene amounts to do stuff that doesn't even need to be done? Or maybe you wouldn't do any of that stuff. Maybe you just play video games and rest more deeply than you've ever rested in your life. And then after a few months of rest, I bet you get bored and you try and do something. But the point is, you'd be in control of your own life. You could make fish soup and stink up your flat whenever you want. One thing Graeber thinks might help is...
Okay, Philosophy Tube, don't do this, alright? Philosophy Tube, let's be reasonable here. Philosophy Tube, I know, don't, this isn't gonna do what you think it is, alright? Your family loves you very much, Philosophy Tube. Don't do this, Philosophy Tube. Philosophy Tube, you fucking maniac. Don't do it. Don't do it, Philosophy Tube. I'm telling you, don't fucking do it.
Universal basic income.
Oh, that's it? Just UBI? Oh, thank God. I thought, with all this talk of like, how the very concept of someone being in charge of you was like inherently terrible, and working in a bar is the same as living in a police state. I thought you were gonna say we needed to like burn down all of society or something. Just UBI? Yeah, sure, maybe, I don't know. Maybe that would work, maybe it wouldn't. I'm not a scientist. Andrew Yang seemed nice.
Or UBI. That's where people get paid. And that's it. You just get paid every month an amount of money that's enough to live on, but not like obscene amounts. And then, if you want more money, you can choose to get a job.
I mean, like, yeah, that sounds great and all. Like, once again, I'm not a scientist. Maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't. But, like, that doesn't really address, like, most of what you said. Like, if you get a job, you would still have to do the things that your boss tells you to do, and you would still have to be nice to customers, and you would still have to not tell your boss that your job sucks and you hate it. Because of course you'd have to do those things. You would just have to do them for like 4 hours instead of 8 hours.
One thing people often say against this is that nobody would become a supermarket assistant or a toilet cleaner if they didn't have to.
Yeah, that is a good point actually. We do need supermarket assistants and we do need toilet cleaners. I don't want to be walking into a building where the toilets aren't cleaned.
And that's always seemed kind of weird to me.
Oh, guys, Philosophy Tube says it's weird. Never mind, pack it up. No more cleaning toilets. We just won't do it anymore. It's weird.
That seems like a tacit acknowledgement of the fact that the jobs that really need to be done don't get paid enough to make them worth doing.
Don't get paid enough to... Oh, so you're just saying you think they should get paid more. Oh yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. I thought you were saying that those jobs, like, shouldn't exist just because people think they're icky. Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. I feel like maybe you should have just said these jobs should get paid more. Because that almost slipped under the radar. I almost didn't catch that. Also, like how would UBI affect that? Because, like, if the idea is that people wouldn't take these jobs unless either they need to or the job pays, like, a big chunk of money, UBI wouldn't make the jobs start paying more. Surely, if anything, if there was a policy you'd want to enact to get that change, it would be raising the minimum wage? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but...
And that a lot of the economy actually requires coercion in order to work. I'm like, well, it's a good thing I bought all this Joker makeup.
Coercion. Like, no outside person is coercing people into getting a job. The thing that is coercing them is the fact that human beings need resources to survive. And those resources don't just fall out of the sky. So in order to get them, you have to work to get them. Because work has to be done to cause those things to exist in the first place. It's the thing like, oh, the worst thing about capitalism is that if you don't work, you die. Like, bro, that's not capitalism. That's the second law of thermodynamics. It's also a Lenin quote, so, you know.
At the moment, there is an at best indirect relationship between what humanity wants and needs and what most people spend most of their time doing.
Some would argue that's the good thing about capitalism. It takes people's inherent greed and channels it into something productive. Generous people will be generous no matter what, but greedy people, people who are only out for themselves, they need to be incentivized to help other people. I don't have much of an investment in whether or not the local home decor store has clean floors, but I sweep the floors there because they give me money to, and my managers don't have much of an investment in whether or not I can buy a Lego Scrooge McDuck minifigure, but they give me money that I can buy Lego Scrooge McDuck minifigures with because I sweep floors for them. Or better yet, to use your own example, everybody wants toilets to be clean, but nobody cleans toilets unless they get paid to.
So why not give everyone a choice about whether or not they want a job and let the free market decide which jobs actually need to be done? Unless all that stuff about choices and free markets is just bullshit designed to keep you working.
Free market just means you are free to do business with whomever you want. It doesn't mean you can do literally anything ever with no consequence to yourself. You sound like that kid in your math class who keeps flicking the back of your head, and then when you ask them to stop, they say, it's a free country. Just because something has the word free in it doesn't mean you can do literally anything you want. What? Things cost money? So much for the free market. I play video games all day, and food doesn't just magically appear in my lap? So much for freedom. On a semi-related note, you know who I feel really bad for? Armored Skeptic. Because the second he put the word skeptic in his name, that invited like every smug fucking prick to just wait for him to make any sort of slip up, any basic human error, and so they can come in and be like, I thought you were Armored Skeptic. Looks like you weren't so skeptical this time. I guess you're not really a skeptic after all. I'm pretty skeptical of your skepticism. Looks like I'm the real skeptic, Mr. Skeptic. Shit must be insufferable.
Unless all that stuff about choices and free markets is just bullshit designed to keep you working.
Philosophy 2, please never do that ever again.
I won't get into the details of how UBI might work today, because I've found that when I discuss an actual policy idea in a video, people tend to think the video is essentially about arguing for that policy. And then a bunch of earnest, well-meaning people make reply videos to me that I'm afraid I don't watch.
Oh, that's me. I'm doing that. Well, Philosophy 2, I promise you, I am indeed earnest and I am indeed well-meaning. If I'm grifting, I'm doing a bad job of it. You're not gonna watch this video anyway. I don't know why I'm trying to convince you of anything.
In which they presumably own me with facts and logic.
You know, facts and logic are like actually a good thing. Just because Ben Shapiro overuses those words in his YouTube titles doesn't mean they're bad. You should indeed be using facts and logic to determine whether an idea is right or not. Oh, you know what's super funny? No, this isn't confirmed. This is merely a rumor, merely speculation, something I have simply heard from other people. But apparently that earnest, well-meaning response videos comment is in reference to another left-wing YouTuber who criticized one of Philosophy Tube's videos on economics. So, if you're a left-wing YouTuber who disagrees with Philosophy Tube on something, you're basically Ben Shapiro.
But I'm not trying to write policy.
So far the timeline is, Philosophy Tube says that jobs are bad and terrible and just like living in a police state. And the one solution given is UBI, because some guy said that might work. Now, here's a counter-argument against UBI, which is actually like a fair point. But then, here's a counter-argument against that counter-argument, which doesn't actually address the concerns that counter-argument raised in the first place. And now Philosophy Tube is saying, actually, I'm just not going to tell you why UBI would work, because that's not what I'm about. So if you went into this video, like, completely neutral on UBI, you have now been presented with a counter-argument against UBI, and then a defense that doesn't actually address that counter-argument, and no other defenses. So I guess I hate UBI now. Congratulations, Philosophy Tube. I'm gonna tell Andrew Yang that you did this.
What I do hope I've done is demystify the world of work a little bit.
Right, but God forbid somebody try to demystify UBI. Then they're literally Ben Shapiro.
And maybe shown you that people like Javier, from different countries, who speak different languages even, can be on the same team as you.
I never believed otherwise. I do find it funny, though, how that whole story about Javier was that he specifically was treated way worse than all of the other employees. and was specifically put in a situation that was only applicable to him because he wasn't white and the other people were, and he would never have the same opportunities as anyone else working there, then Philosophy Tube just slides in right at the end. You know what? Javier and I, we're really not so different.
At the very least, if you think that your job is a waste of time and human potential, then you are not alone, my friend. The cafe where I had my last pre-YouTube job is now closed down.
Well, that's a shame. They seemed like a very nice place with very well-intentioned people working there who were very nice to their employees.
Probably because they paid a bunch of people to stand around drinking free beer.
Jesus, you sure do seem chipper about that.
But by the time it did, I was ready to start auditioning for professional drama schools and turning YouTube into something that actually makes a little bit of money.
Oh, that's why. Because you don't have to worry about that. You're set. You got your bag. Tough titties for the rest of them, though.
This job, the one that I'm doing right now, is by far the hardest I've ever had in terms of hours that it takes. And that's not even getting into stuff like stalkers and death threats that make it way harder than it should be.
Oh, yeah, no, that's bad. I imagine this goes without saying, but, you know, just in case, don't send Philosophy Tube any death threats. One, it's just, like, morally wrong, and two, it wouldn't even accomplish anything. And this isn't me doing some, like, weird reverse thing where I say, like, oh, totally don't do the bad thing, but actually secretly I want you to do it. I mean, for Christ's sake, I'm not Vosh. Like, actually, genuinely do not do that.
But I love it.
So, the moral of the story is that working at a bad job with a bad boss is just the same as living in a police state. But working at a good job with a good boss is just as bad, because that boss can still tell you what to do. But also, working at a government job where you do nothing will drive you insane. And a non-government job that doesn't tell you what to do is stupid, because of course they're going to go out of business. They're just letting you do nothing. And they're giving you free beer, which is going to bankrupt them. But also, bars make a whole bunch of money by selling beer. And they're basically just raking it in. Well, not raking it in, but they're still doing really well. So the ideal job is to become an actor in commercials. Because unlike other jobs where you get told what to do and what to say and what emotion you have to pretend to have, this job tells you what to do and what to say and what emotion you're supposed to have, but it's in commercials, so it's fun. Even though you have to pretend a product is good when really you have no idea. Unlike those other bad scam jobs where you have to sell a product even though you know it's bad. And the solution to all of this is for the government to give you money. I'm not going to tell you how that would work though. This is why I hate talking about economics.
Because I do feel like it makes a bit of a difference, and I'm in control of it. Well, I'm mostly in control of it.
That joke just cost you your whole point.
I don't agree that working is always good if work makes you miserable and what you're working on is pointless. I don't agree that creating jobs is always helpful. And I do think that the world would be happier if we all worked a little bit less. And so now I am going to take my own advice. I am going to take December off. Philosophy Tube will return in early 2021 with a new look.
Oh, the new look was woman. Man, hindsight's crazy.
If you celebrate Christmas, then I hope that you keep Christmas well.
Right, so like first I was gonna say, like, oh, you know, it's a little too late for Christmas, but I appreciate it. And then it became very too late for Christmas. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll get this video out in July, and I can be like, oh, it's Christmas in July. And then it got later, and I was like, oh, well, I guess we're just gonna hit Christmas again. And now it's past Christmas, but it's still December. The Santa hat is still seasonally appropriate. And so I will say, Merry Christmas to you too, Philosophy Tube. And Merry Christmas to everyone else. And Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Kwanzaa, and all the rest. And I hope you all have a Happy New Year. Here's to 2022 being better.
And in the words of Charles Dickens, this video was sponsored by Skillshare. Dear Diary, today I made a video that was sponsored by Skillshare. There are no—
Do you want to watch an ad from somebody who just admitted in this video that they do ads for products that they've never used before and have no idea what they're like? Because I don't. Oh my god, look at all those patrons. I'm playing this at 32 times speed. She must be raking it in. Oh, hi Karl Marx. Yeah, in retrospect, weird that a video whose stated goal was to
cut across political divides in these polarized times
would put in a blatant Karl Marx reference. Like, even if what he says is correct, it's just like, you couldn't find someone else other than Karl Marx who said something similar? Anyway, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's.
He's so smart, he solved the mystery of the chupacabra. Turns out it was just a shaved bear!